scientist, anthropologist, and spelunker Paul Edward Arsenault has come up with an intriguing theory regarding the Rake. The Rake, a humanoid cryptid known for its hairless albino body, its rake-like claws, its glowing red-pink eyes, and its affinity for sneaking into homes and bedrooms. Arsenault believes it's a cave dweller and that its natural home is underground, in caverns and tunnels beneath the earth, from which it emerges after dark to look for prey. Arsenault notes that many Rake sightings are connected to caves, basements, and other underground places. Consider, Arsenault says, the following account I received from a young man who wishes to remain anonymous. I quote from his email. For many years I slept with the lights on, but not because I was afraid of the dark, but because of things that live in the dark. It was the worst experience of my life, and it involved a cave. It wasn't a real cave, more like a glorified hole in the side of a ridge not far from a nearby creek. You had to crawl in, but once through the opening, you could sit up and talk and smoke by the light from a flashlight. The urban legend about this cave was that Satanists, devil worshippers, Satanists had used it to celebrate the Black Mass. Yeah, right. It was just a cold, smelly hole. Some friends of ours had brought a Ouija board there and had supposedly contacted a demon. A demon. Yeah, right again. So we had to go check it out at midnight and see if we could contact the demon or raise the dead or drink some of the rum, the demon rum we had with us. Jeff was supposed to bring candles, but of course he forgot, so we had to set up the board, or should I say Brianna set up the board, using the light from our phones. We didn't see any pentagrams on the floor or anything like that, nothing scrawled on the walls. It was just a dark, smelly cave. Although I did notice a narrow fissure in one corner, a crack leading further into the hillside. My buddy Tino started it all by acting like an asshole. Before we had begun asking Ouija any questions, he bellows, "Hey, Satan! Satan! We're here! Come and get us!" He was answered by a loud shriek that almost made me piss my pants. Of course, we all looked at each other and mouthed various iterations of, "What was that?" The shriek had a high, piercing quality that didn't sound human. The first thought that came to my mind was mountain lion. Mountain lions. Did we even have them around here? "It came from over in the corner, where that crack is," Jeff said, pointing. "I'll take a look," Tino said, walking over to the fissure and shining the light from his phone inside. Another loud shriek. This one sounded nearer, much nearer. Tino stared intently down the fissure. Then suddenly he turned, his broad face gray, as he yelled one word. "Run!" The big bozo looked so frightened, we ran, although Brianna cried out, "Don't forget the Ouija board!" We forgot it, but we didn't forget the rum. I saw to that. As I said earlier, we had to crawl into the cave through a narrow opening in the hillside, so there was a bit of a bottleneck getting out, and I found my face pressed up against Jeff's ass and hoping he wouldn't fart, while Tino kept pushing from behind me. Go! 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 The shriek came again, this time even closer. Once outside, we had to get to the car, which was several hundred yards away atop the ridge. It was a brilliant moonlit night, and as we ran for the trail that would bring us up to safety, I kept turning to Tino and sputtering, What was it? What did you see?" To which he replied, "Just go, go, go." At the foot of the path, I took a glance back. Something was emerging from the opening to the cave, something that glowed whitely and which emitted another of the heart-rending shrieks. And as I stared, the thing stood up, and I could now see it clearly in the moonlight. It was humanoid, about the height of a person, and completely glistening white, its hairless body shining in the moonlight. It had glowing pink eyes and long arms ending in huge hands with incredibly long fingers or claws. The thing looked up at the full moon and shrieked. I stood staring at it, unable to process what I saw, until Tino kicked me in the ass and yelled, "Run, bro, run!" We sprinted up the trail and gained the top of the ridge. We could hear the thing, whatever it was, moving through the trees and the underbrush, trying to cut us off, and pausing now and then to give vent to a bowel-watering scream. Never had the car seemed so far away, but eventually we made it, locking ourselves inside. I took a swig from the Mickey of rum, then choked out, "What was that thing?" As the cryptid we call the Rake wasn't very well known at that time. By way of an answer, the thing howled again, sounding almost next to the car. Tino was at the wheel. "It came down that crack, from inside the hill like." Brianna was crying, let's go, before it gets here." Tino switched on the ignition, the headlights, and there it was. It was now crouched on the ground, on all fours, its pinkish glowing eyes staring directly into our headlights. It was naked, hairless, dead white, and it opened its slash of a mouth to scream, revealing gleaming fangs. And then it charged. Tino threw the car into reverse, and we tore out of the parking area as the thing continued to pursue us, getting closer and closer, as Brianna screamed, as Jeff screamed, as Tino screamed, as I screamed, and this time actually wetting my pants. And then it was gone. We were silent on the way home, but as we let Brianna out, I wonder what her parents thought when they saw her tear-streaked face. But as we let Brianna out, Tino said, "Let's keep this to ourselves, eh? No one would believe us." Tino ended up crashing at my place, where we finished the rum and argued. I kept saying we had an obligation to warn others, but Tino kept insisting that no one would believe us. And in the end, I realized he was right. I never saw the thing again, but I sure heard it on 2 separate occasions. Once, when I was parked near a wooded area on the other side of town, and once outside my apartment building late at night. On the first occasion, I got the hell out of there. On the second, I closed my drapes and put the chain on the front door. as if that would have stopped those claws. But I was very glad I lived up on the 3rd floor. I was glad, too, when I eventually moved away. The area where all this happened has been developed into a recreation area since then, and I have no idea if the cave is still there or not. But I have no intention of looking. Since my experience, a number of people have disappeared in the general area of the ridge, and I don't want to become one of them. If you want directions to the cave, I can provide them. So ends the email. The creature described is clearly the Rake, humanoid, about the height of a person, and completely glistening white, its body hairless. It had glowing pink eyes and long arms, ending in huge hands with incredibly long fingers or claws. The hairless albino body, the glowing pink eyes, the rake-like hands, all suggest a creature designed for subterranean life. The Rake, therefore, is a huge, predatory, albino mole. In this instance, the Rake was initially encountered emerging through a fissure from the bowels of the earth, possibly from an underground cavern or tunnel, which supports my theory that they live underground, but can emerge to attack us. Edward Paul Arsenault is a cryptozoologist. A cryptozoologist studying the Rake. The Rake, a hairless albino cryptid known for its sharp teeth and huge, clawed, rake-like hands. It is also known for its extremely aggressive behavior towards humans and has been documented as entering homes and bedrooms to kill. Arsenault's research is controversial, as he claims the Rake is actually a subterranean dweller whose natural habitat are caves and fissures beneath the earth. Arsenault says he received the following email from a foreign student attending a Canadian university in regards to an encounter with the Rake. From the email: I attend university in a city with an extremely, to me, cold climate. As it is both too far and too expensive to go home, I was spending the Christmas holidays in Canada. But some friends invited me to go skiing, and I was looking forward to trying it for the first time. Alas, I had an exam on the very last afternoon, so I ended up having to wait 2 days for my friends to pick me up. It was a strange and rather creepy situation. I live in residence, and I was the only one there. Really. I was completely isolated and alone, and I must admit, it made me nervous. I found I couldn't sleep, and as you can only play video games and surf the net so long, I decided to go for a walk, but not outside, where it was minus 20 Celsius. Warren here. That's minus 4 Fahrenheit for our American listeners. Now, back to the email. My university has an extensive network of underground tunnels which connect the majority of buildings on campus, so it is possible to walk from one end of school to the other without exposing yourself to the elements. a real plus in, say, December. It was after 2 a.m., so everything on campus was shut down. In fact, a lot of it was already shut down for the Christmas holidays. And, as a result, the tunnels were completely deserted. Not that I noticed at first. I had my earbuds in and was just enjoying being in motion and checking out the artwork and graffiti that covered the tunnel walls. But after 20 minutes of prowling these twilight corridors and not encountering a single living soul, my sense of nervousness returned. In fact, I started feeling like someone was watching me, that someone was actually following me. I'd heard rumors that a number of people had gone missing from campus, mostly young women, but some guys and university employees as well. Information on these incidents was pretty cloudy, but the common denominator was supposed to be the tunnels. I took out my earbuds in order to listen to my surroundings. It's probably not a good idea to walk around after dark without being able to hear what is going on around you. I know. Duh! At first I couldn't hear anything other than the faint industrial hum of the lighting and heating systems. I was about to put my buds back in when I heard the shriek. It was loud and piercing, far louder than any noise I had ever heard before. And it was terrifying. It just had this blood-curdling quality that made me catch my breath. It seemed to be coming from somewhere in front of me. I was in a long, straight stretch of tunnel, and at the very limits of my vision, I could see something moving, something white and low to the ground. I squinted my eyes, unable to make it out. And then it shrieked once again and appeared to be running towards me on all fours. I still couldn't see it clearly, but I didn't stick around for a closer look, but took off as fast as I could. And now I was screaming too. I had wandered a long way from my residence, and I wasn't sure I could make it back to safety. Why, oh why didn't I just stay in my room? The thing had continued its baying and seemed to be getting closer and closer. I chanced a quick glance over my shoulder, and what I saw made me scream anew. The thing that was chasing me was humanoid in appearance. Humanoid, but completely white, like an albino. It was hairless, had red flashing eyes and claws, huge, and it was gaining on me. Was it a ghoul? A djinn? I ran for my very life, for my very soul, and heard another sound, a welcome sound, the beeping sound of an approaching university vehicle. University staff used these vehicles, which were like oversized golf carts, to travel from one end of campus to the other. As the tunnels were usually full of students, they made a beeping noise to warn of their approach. This one contained 4 university security officers, each one carrying an automatic weapon. One of the cops yelled, "Get in!" And so I did. The thing was already fleeing, scared off by the lights and by the beeping of the security vehicle, and by the guns pointed at it. We rode back to my residence in silence, one of the cops escorting me back to my room. When we got there, he said curtly, "Stay in your room now, and don't go into the tunnels at night." and forget about everything you just saw. But how? How can I forget? Arsino concludes, it's clear from this young man's testimony that he saw the Rake, the white albino hairless body, the flashing red eyes, the huge clawed hands, and the unearthly shrieks are a perfect description of the Rake and its aggressive behavior. As I believe it to be an underground dweller, it has no doubt found some means of entry into these tunnels. Tunnels, another underground environment. I suspect what scared it off in this instance were the bright lights of the university vehicle. They would have hurt its light-sensitive eyes. I also have no doubt that the Rake is responsible for all the supposedly mysterious disappearances. This young man has had a narrow escape. E.P. Arsino is a cryptozoologist whose specialty is the Rake. The Rake, a hairless albino cryptid known for its sharp teeth and huge, clawed, rake-like hands. The Rake is also known for its extremely aggressive behavior towards humans and has been documented as entering homes and bedrooms to kill. Arsino's research is controversial since he claims the Rake is actually a subterranean dweller whose natural habitat is caves and fissures beneath the earth. The cryptozoologist claims he received the following email from a student living in the Golden Horseshoe of Ontario, i.e. the Toronto area. According to Arsino, the email reads as follows. I had just reached legal drinking age, so some of my buddies took me to a dance club in a nearby town to celebrate. It was a bit of an older crowd, and as the ladies just seemed to laugh at us, we decided to head back and grab some eats. We took the Queen E back to town. We had thought about cruising the A&W in Bronte, but then someone suggested pizza. So we were headed to Kerr Street and a pizzeria to put anchovies on their pies. Anchovies. Traffic was surprisingly light. We were just approaching the fourth line when we saw it. A tall, cadaverous, totally white humanoid thing that ran across 8 lanes of traffic. 8 lanes before disappearing into a grove of trees along the highway. We were all talking and pointing, and Andre, who was at the wheel, pulled a sudden right, and we left the highway and headed 100 yards down the fourth line. We knew that on the other side of the woods lay an abandoned farm, complete with silo, as well as the CN tracks. A rutted trail led out to the silo, and we took it. We slowly bumped our way out there to where the leprous yellow silo stood like a sentinel in the moonlight. Andre was driving dead slow, as he had his old man's Chrysler 300, and he was afraid of a loose stone or piece of gravel dinging it. We pulled up by the foundation to the ruined barn, on an area of dead grass which made a natural parking space. And then proceeded to argue about what to do next. Andre wanted to stay with the car, to protect it, I guess, while me and the other 2 guys wanted to get out and look for the thing, to see if we could get a picture or maybe film it. In the end, we compromised and left Andre on guard in the 300, while we walked over to the woods. I had with me a powerful flashlight that Andre's old man kept in the trunk of the car, while Thad and Cody had to make do with the lights from their phones. We walked through tall, rank grass to the edge of the trees, then hesitated, uncertain as to what to do next. It occurred to me that what we were doing was more than a little risky. I know. Duh! Cody put it in words. We'd better not go in there, bro. Like, did you see the size of that effing thing? I was about to say, yeah, let's go back to the car, when we heard the shriek. I almost crapped myself. The shriek was loud and piercing, and came from behind us. We all turned to look back, and saw the 300 tearing out of there. But that is not all we saw. The white humanoid thing had emerged from the ruined foundations and was running across the grass towards us, running on all fours. We had no choice but to run for it too. So after a lot of really bad language, we plunged into the trees. The woods weren't very extensive, no more than 100 yards across, but we kept running and tripping over things, and I learned swear words I'd never heard before. We were in there 2 minutes max, but it felt like hours. I heard something tearing through the bushes behind me, so I swung the flashlight around and impaled the white thing with a beam of LED light. It shrieked again, and I saw the thing had pink eyes, and I realized it might be an albino. It was obviously blinded and stumbled against a tree. Not that I stood there gawking. Its scream had revealed a mouth full of gleaming white teeth. And those hands, those claws, they were like rakes. The endless trees finally ended, and we found ourselves at the side of the road. Fortunately, Andre had sense enough to be there with the 300. We piled in, and he burnt rubber getting out of there. Ha! Guess he didn't want those claws scratching up the old man's paint. We got into quite a lively discussion. Argument about what we had seen and if we had really seen it. But I did some looking on the net and concluded that what we had encountered was the Rake. The white, hairless, humanoid body, the pink albino eyes, the mouth full of sharp teeth, the blood-curdling shrieks, and those claws, like huge garden rakes. After a week or so, Cody and I went back to have a look around. In broad daylight. Broad daylight. The thing or rake seemed to come out of the ruins of the foundation, so we decided to explore them. They were covered by a roof, which must have been the concrete floor of the missing barn, and could be entered through a dark opening, the door of which had long since vanished. I had a flashlight, my own, and shone it around the pitch black space, but there was nothing there, or at least nothing I saw at first. For the floor of the cellar or dark space was covered with bones, some of which had been chewed. Are those human? Cody whispered. I don't know, I said. I certainly hope not. I noticed what appeared to be a trap door in the middle of the floor. It was raised by pulling on a rope tied to an iron ring. And while a sensible person would have left it alone, I pulled on the rope and raised it. We saw a flight of rough-hewn stone steps leading down into darkness, a portal to the center of the earth. Warm, fetid air wafted up from below, making us take an involuntary step backwards. I looked at Cody. Should we go down? Cody stopped himself from yelling at the last second, but his voice was still loud as he said, "Close that effing thing now!" So I closed it, and we got out of there. Fast. And I'm never going back. I sent you this email, Dr. Arsenault, since I'm pretty sure you'll believe me. No one else does. Arsenault concludes, "It's clear from this young man's testimony that he and his friends saw the Rake, the white albino hairless body, the flashing red eyes, the huge clawed hands, and the unearthly shrieks, as well as its sensitivity to bright lights, are a perfect description of the Rake and its aggressive behavior. As I believe it to be an underground dweller, it no doubt gains entry to the surface by means of the hidden stairway found in the ruined foundations of the old barn. The bones are likely from rabbits and other small animals, unless there have been reports of missing persons in the area. The Rake has been known to kill humans. In future, I think the young man and his friends are well advised to avoid the silo and its ruined foundations." Paul Edward Armando is a cryptozoologist whose specialty is studying the Rake. The Rake, a hairless albino cryptid known for its sharp teeth and huge, clawed, rake-like hands. It is also known for its extremely aggressive behavior towards humans and has been documented as entering homes and bedrooms to kill. Armando's research is controversial, as he claims the Rake is actually a subterranean dweller whose natural habitat is caves and fissures beneath the earth. But, as noted above, they can enter human abodes, homes, and buildings to carry out their depredations. Armando states, "Consider the following account I received from a man living in a city in Western Canada." Quote, "I have a buddy who owns a rental property in a poorer section of town, and as I needed a place to live, he offered me one of the 4 flats in exchange for keeping an eye on the place. The other 3 units were empty, as he had been renovating them during the pandemic. As it was a rough area with a lot of break-ins, my buddy suggested that I lock down the building at night. I mean, I was the only one there, right? And so I did. I locked the front and back doors, the double doors leading down to the cellar, plus the doors to all the flats, including mine. Heck, I was so into locking doors, I even locked my bedroom door when I went to bed. This is important later. For the first week or so, everything went fine. The nights were quiet with very little noise from the street, and every morning I would exit the building and check that all the doors and windows were locked and hadn't been tampered with. I did the same when I came home at night, but everything seemed safe and secure. until the night I heard something moving around downstairs. I had woken up to find it was 3:43 a.m. I wasn't sure what had disturbed me, but as I sat up, I thought I could hear something moving around downstairs, perhaps in the basement. I listened intently, but the noise appeared to have stopped, and I soon drifted back to sleep. Next night came the nightmare. I dreamt I was walking through the dark alleys of a primeval forest. It was dusk, and I could barely see in the murky shadows. But even though I could barely see, I somehow knew I was being followed by something that wanted to harm me. I tried to pick up my pace, but it was impossible to move quickly in the oppressive gloom that surrounded me. And then something behind me shrieked! My heart stopped, and I almost lost control of my bowels. The scream had come from behind me, but close behind me. I whipped around, and at first I could see nothing, just trees and shadows. But then I caught a glimpse of movement, of something pale, whitish, low to the ground and heading towards me. As it drew nearer, I could see it was a thin, white humanoid with glowing red eyes, the glare of which made it hard to discern its overall appearance. It appeared to be on all fours, but then it stood up. It was thin, skeletal, the skin an almost fluorescent white, and those huge hands, those claws, those huge hands, as large as rakes. The thing shrieked again, and I could see it was running towards me, and then I was running, and I woke up, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might tear out of my chest. I struggled to catch my breath and heard something moving around inside the building. The sounds seemed to be coming from downstairs, and there was no mistaking them. Something was ascending the stairs from the ground floor. As I listened intently, it reached the hall, and I could hear it moving slowly, stealthily, across the hardwood floors, making a faint clacking sound. A clacking sound. Did the thing have claws? I got out of bed as noiselessly as I could and padded over to listen at the door of the flat. The unknown thing drew closer and closer until it was directly outside. And then it tried the door. I could see the handle moving up and down. Something was trying to get in. I thought about pulling open the door, thought about calling out, "Who's there?" But I was paralyzed by an overwhelming sense of dread, of icy terror. So I slunk back to bed as quietly as I could, relocking the bedroom door. But all the time, I was sure the thing knew I was in there. So why didn't it try to break in? I lay awake the rest of the night. I think I slept a bit towards morning. When daylight returned, I made a complete examination of the building, but all the doors and windows were locked and secured. But in the basement, I suddenly realized that there was a crawl space under the building. Could something be entering up through the crawl space, coming up from underground. I went to lift the lid to see what was underneath. But once again, I was paralyzed by an overwhelming sense of dread, of icy terror. So I left it alone. I should have told my buddy that something was getting into the building, something weird, but instead I kept silent. A curious malaise seemed to come over me, a reluctance to speak, and, strangely enough, a sense of shame. But for whatever reason, I kept silent. I knew that somehow I was destined to see the thing again, that somehow I was meant to be its victim. I went to bed as normal, and once again dreamt of the dark and terrible forest, and of the white humanoid thing that chased me, and that almost caught me. Once again, I woke up to find it was 3:43 a.m., and that this thing, that it was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring down at me. It was fish belly, dirty white, and completely hairless, an emaciated humanoid with burning, glowing red eyes and hands. Those huge hands, those long clawed fingers, hands as huge as garden rakes. For that's what it is, isn't it? Isn't it the rake? The rake? This happened a week ago, and every night it's the same story. I always awaken at the same time, 3:43 a.m., to find my companion, the rake, staring down at me while I stare back until, towards dawn, I fall back to sleep, fall back into the dank forest, and when I wake up, the rake is gone. What is happening to me? Am I going mad? I should tear myself away or tell my buddy or something, but I can't seem to do it. So I'm telling you, it's as if this strange being has mesmerized me. What can I do? Thus concludes this strange account. Armando's conclusion? The entity which has breached the security of this apartment block is clearly the rake. Clearly the rake. The huge white albino hairless body, the flashing red eyes, the huge clawed hands, and the unearthly shrieks are a perfect description of the rake and its aggressive behavior. The rake is well known for penetrating homes and bedrooms, and has been known to stare voyeuristically at sleeping persons before waking and attacking them. Sometimes it even speaks in a shrill, unintelligible voice. As I believe it to be an underground dweller, it has no doubt found some means of entry into the building through the crawl space, which is somehow connected to some underground caves or tunnels, perhaps even to the sewer system. Alas, I fear my correspondent is doomed. Even if he should leave this building, and even go to another city, I suspect the rake, which is perhaps a paranormal as well as a physical entity, will follow him with harmful intent. I wish I could be more positive, but rationally, he's doomed. Eduardo Arsenault is a cryptozoologist whose specialty is studying the Rake. The Rake, a hairless albino cryptid known for its sharp teeth, huge rake-like hands, and incredibly sharp claws. It is also known for its extremely aggressive behavior towards humans, and has been documented as entering homes and bedrooms to kill. Arsino's research is controversial, as he claims the Rake is actually a subterranean dweller whose natural habitat is caves and fissures beneath the earth. But, as noted above, they can enter human abodes, homes, and buildings to carry out their depredations. As evidence of some of his conclusions, Arsino cites the following message he received from a young man who is currently being victimized by the Rake. Arsino quotes the young man's statement as follows, quote, "I live in a major urban center and work out of corporate headquarters, which has a high-rise office complex in the downtown business district. After 2 years of working mainly from home, staff is beginning to trickle back to the office. I was an early arrival and loved it. Loved having most of the office all to myself, especially the underground parking lot. I could park anywhere and usually got a spot near the elevator. But as time has gone by, I've lost a bit of my privileged status, and now sometimes I need to park some distance, say 100 meters, from the elevator. I know, what hardship. First world problems, eh? But it has proved to be exactly that, a hardship, and in a way I could never have imagined, which is why I need your help. For the past month or so, I've been working late, several nights a week. I'm project manager on a suburban apartment development, and we're working to tight deadlines. As a result, I'm often one of the last people to leave and have to walk through the empty parking lot. It's spooky, and I found myself starting to get creeped out. You see, there were noises. The sound of light footsteps, of something moving about down on the lower level. The garage has 2 levels. Something moving quietly, as if they were sneaking about. But I could also hear something faintly scratching or clacking against the bare concrete. Claws? I walked over to the top of the ramp, leading down to the lower level, to see if I could find out what was going on. But nothing. I could see a few parked cars and a dumpster in one corner, but most of the level lay in relative shadow. I called out, "Hello? Hello?" and saw a flash of white, of something moving close to the ground, its claws raking the cement, the noise echoing through the garage. What the hell was that? Was it a dog? Was there a dog in here? Now, we had security in the building who were supposed to monitor the various sections via a bank of cameras, but I'd long suspected they were too busy staring at their phones to be watching the surveillance screens. I went back upstairs and told the guard in the lobby what I had seen. He said he'd dispatched someone to have a look, but I doubt he did. In any event, I never heard any more about the incident. A few nights later, I once again stayed late, and it was after 10 before I started for home. Once again, I had to walk through the empty parking lot, but this time, several of the lights near the elevator, hell, several of the lights on the way to my car, seemed to be burned out, making the garage even gloomier than usual. If that was possible. The corner with my vehicle seemed especially dark, and it probably didn't help that I owned a black Nissan Rogue. I was just getting into the car when I heard the shriek. I swiveled my head, and coming up the ramp from the lower level was the same white thing or dog or whatever I'd seen before. It was white and running on all fours, and now I could see that it wasn't a dog or an animal, but a human, or at least a humanoid. It was all white, chalky white, hairless, with those flashing red eyes and those hands, those claws. I could imagine what they would do to the Rogue's paint, let alone what they could do to human flesh. I jumped in and backed screeching out of the parking stall, then made like a bat out of hell for the exit, with the white thing right behind me, screeching louder than the noise from my tires. I wondered wildly if the fools who were supposed to be providing security were watching this on camera and calling the police or something. But I doubted it. They were no doubt glued to their phones. I hit the streets at high speed and didn't slow down until I had to slam on the brakes for a red light. Only then I could breathe a sigh of relief and... Oh my God! My God! The white thing, the white humanoid thing, was sitting in the back seat. I don't know if it was leering at me or not, as its eyes were just a pair of glowing red lights, like the eyes of some enormous fruit fly. But it wasn't just the eyes that arrested my attention. It was the huge clawed hands, like enormous garden rakes, the sharpened fingernails actually tearing into the upholstery. I somehow managed to get over to the curb without crashing the car. I'd pulled up by a subway station, and I was out of the Rogue and running for the stairs instantly. I managed to dive into the last subway car just before the train pulled out of the station, and the white thing, the monster, whatever, chased me down the platform, scampering on all fours like a wolf or a werewolf. As you may imagine, I was in a state of shock. I reeled and collapsed onto a seat facing the window, through which the thing, the monster, could be clearly seen. But then I noticed an even stranger thing. While a number of the other passengers were openly staring at me, no one, none of them, appeared to notice the white monstrosity running alongside the train. Was I the only one able to see it? Was this some weird hallucination? Is that why the security guards never saw anything? Gosh, I must be working too damn hard. I got off the subway a block from my apartment and walked home unmolested. The only thing I noticed that was at all unusual was how quiet it had all become. I was the only one who had gotten off the train, and I found the street deserted. There wasn't even any traffic. When I got home, I poured myself a stiff drink and was pouring it down my throat when I heard a noise coming from my bedroom. I crept down the hall, then slowly pushed open my bedroom door. It was sitting at the end of my bed, a hairless albino thing with glowing pinkish red eyes, flashing its sharp teeth and waving its huge rake-like claws. And there it sat all night. And it sits there still. It sits there all night long. It never tries to molest me, just watches me as I sleep, but that's not all. It sits in my passenger seat when I drive to work and crouches by my desk at the office. But no one else can see it. Just me, crouching there, staring at me. Am I going mad? From what I've been able to learn from the net, this must be the Rake. Well, you're a Rake expert. Is it a thing of flesh and blood, or is it some kind of ghost? And how do I get rid of it? Please help. Arsino concludes, this being is clearly the Rake. The white, albino, hairless body, the flashing red eyes, the huge clawed hands, and the unearthly shrieks are a perfect description of the Rake in its aggressive behavior. The Rake is well known for penetrating homes and bedrooms and has been known to stare voyeuristically at sleeping persons before waking and attacking them. Sometimes it even speaks in a shrill, unintelligible voice. As I believe it to be an underground dweller, I'm not surprised that the victim initially encountered it in an underground space, namely the garage of the office building. But as to the question of it being a paranormal as opposed to a flesh and blood entity, more data is required. Alas, in this case, I fear the young man is headed for mental collapse. If not, doom. Warren here. So Arsino thinks our hero is doomed. But what do you think, dear listeners? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And stay safe, stay subscribed, ring the bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos, and feel free to share this video and any of my videos with anyone you please. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children, and now, of course, the Rake. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs in 2022. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used today, courtesy of Pix here. That's PX here. While the music was The Dreadful, The Dread. The only appropriate music for a video about the Rake, The Dread, by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod.